It's time for Cutting Edge Consciousness with Freeman Michaels and Barnett Bain. Thought-provoking discussions and bold ideas from the edge of possibility.
And we're back on Cutting Edge Consciousness. This is Barnett Bain. I'm here with my co-host, Freeman Michaels, and that was
full of passion.
Full of passion. A lot of fire in that lady.
Yeah.
There is no shortage of energy there. No shortage of energy. I love what she had to say vis-a-vis making a structural, committed procedure out of sifting through your interests and your enthusiasms in order to find how you prioritize where your passions lie.
Yeah.
There's just it is impossible to share with our listeners the impact of that.
Well, it recontextualizes everything. I mean, this once you know what you're about and what your life is, what to aim at, it changes the game. I mean, your choices are going to be different once you understand that.
Yeah. I have been exploring. We both have been exploring passions very deeply as well. Something that I've discovered about my own passion is that it is not it's not about the form that it is experienced through. I used to think that I was passionate about my work. I was passionate about doing this radio work, and I am passionate about the ocean. I used to think that those were my passions, and I suspect now that it is not so much that those are my passions, as much as it is that those are the vehicles by which and through which my passion is expressed, through which I am able to tap to more of my aliveness, more of my vitality.
Yeah, so it's the quality underneath it.
It is the quality underneath it.
Yeah.
It's the passion. What so many refer to as passion is really the form.
Yeah,
it's
the expression.
It's the expression of a function.
Yeah.
The form follows the function. The function is the more real.
Yeah. And you said it when we even started. It's what lights me up from the inside. And if that becomes the criteria, then a lot of the ideas of what might be fulfilling, fall flat. We go, okay, that's great as an idea, but what's underneath it? And there's this drilling down to say, what's the quality in that? What's the quality, the connection, the intimacy, and what we were speaking about with activating these other ways of taking in data, the heart, or in the embodiment that there's this body that I can trust, that has intuition and that has a sense of the sensual, that can pick up and sense. And we both are recovering, head trippers running around in our heads. So the whole idea of accentuating these other ways of perceiving and conceiving of our world is paramount to
There's
activating
a sort
this
of a
passion.
magnetism to them.
Yeah.
There are qualities to passionate living that draw us into the that draw us toward the discovery of them.
That's awesome. That's the big game.
I mean, one thing that I've discovered for myself is that what taps me into the activities, the vehicles that tap me into my own experience of my passion. Those activities are giving activities. They are dynamic. They're interactive.
Sharing,
they're
yes.
sharing activities.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, even if they're solo, they still create an environment that puts me in touch with more of myself.
And you know what quality always seems to accompany them? You kind of don't love when I say this, but it's just true.
Yeah.
I know, because they're always a little bit scary. I mean, that's my truth, is that there's always this element of edge. I mean, this show is called Cutting Edge Consciousness. We keep talking about the edge, is that they always involve, for me, some element of my own edge. There's always this thing of, this.
Well, there's an excellence, I think, but I'm wondering, that's often true for me, but I am not a gardener,
Right.
Though there's a gardener that lives not very far away from where I do, and I see her out all of the time, and she doesn't look. I think she probably is on her edge, because it probably is an edge of excellence and an edge of commitment and an edge of focus that takes her deeper and deeper into the experience of this communion with nature spirits, with the art that she's making. So I guess it isn't. I guess you're right. I guess it is an edge. You're always growing the self.
And I'm going to just say right now, I don't know if I can speak for anyone else. I can say for myself that I'm kind of a leaper. You know, I'm
a leper. Better a leaper than a leper.
Better a leaper than a leper.
Yeah.
I am.
That's an edge.
Yeah, that's an edge. Don't go there. I am fired up by an element of what if, of the excitement of a possibility that just seems slightly beyond my comfort zone. And I'm committed to growing in that way.
So let's unpack that for a second.
Yeah, go ahead.
So here you are. I know we know each other very well.
Yep.
Here you are in front of a microphone, which is perhaps your most natural environment.
But I'm always
maybe second only
nervous
to sucking in air. So in front of a microphone, there is a quality of beingness that you bring.
Yeah.
That is joyful. It is flowing.
But there's always edge. Barnett,
well, what's the edge part?
I don't know. I mean, I've been on stage my whole life too, and I'm always a little scared.
Are you talking about butterflies?
Yeah, but even something else is like, okay, so if we have a guest on, I'm writing notes, and as I'm like thinking of things I might want to talk about, or I'm listening in a particular way, you do it. You go to like, what's the question that's right on the edge? What's the question that I don't know the answer to? That's far more exciting.
Well, yes, because what we both share in common is that we are more interested in what we can learn and discover than what we can reaffirm about the past.
Yeah.
So it's always a leaning into.
And wouldn't it be cool if?
How can we blow the bubble of the conversation a little bit larger?
Yeah, we've called it biggering.
Biggering.
It's not a word, but it's
That's a rough word.
We're biggering. I want to go back to something because, look, I don't know if I didn't hear it, but I didn't get it answered well enough, and I was so glad you asked it. What about the trickster? What about the aspect of self-deception? And it is rampant, and at least in my own life, I see it reflected back because there's all these little things these shiny objects that distract my attention, but I'm often tricked to go there. All these little offers.
The trickster shows up. The trickster maybe is more accurately understood, appreciated as an energy of delusion. Sometimes if things look too good to be true, they may just be too good to be true.
Right.
And require. Now I know that with our audience, we're going to get some blowback about that. No, everything is possible and everything, and that is true. And yet we are developmentally in a individual relationship with all that is, and we have certain scripts and patterns and behaviors and conditioned habits of thinking and feeling that mitigate against receiving outside of what is familiar. And one of the opportunities, the great gifts of being alive and being on a spiritual path and growing consciousness is to roll back to become, your word, biggerer. Did I say that word right?
Yeah, you did. I think we're talking about expanding capacity.
So the trickster is an energy that presents itself as a legitimate unfolding, rolling back of the ring past not. We talked about that last week. All of our beliefs about what is possible, all of our feelings about what is possible, all of our structured imagining, all of our sense of what is possible for myself. We call that the ring past not. It's an archaic magical term. And just saying it feels wonderful and magic. So this trickster kind of gives you a pass and pretends, the trickster energy says, You can take shortcuts. You can do what
Yeah.
we've called here on this show premature transcendence syndrome. And that if you just wish it, wish it, wish it, and don't clear out what may be below the waterline of our awareness in terms of resistances and pushbacks, that the trickster says you don't need to take a look at that. You just have to, you have to just click your ruby slippers and dream yourself back in Kansas. So that energy mitigates against having a authentic relationship with your frequencies of passion.
Well put. And the part of the passion test and the part of this clarifying process is that it's not a shortcut. It's a clarifying of the path, which leads to the letting go, again, from intention to attention to no tension, where we're able to trust that we'll find a way without it being so effortful. Because it's interesting, the trickster often ends up being an element of efforting, at least in my experience.
Steers you toward effort.
Yeah, it does.
Steers you towards struggle. The trickster is not in the flow.
Right.
The trickster is still an energy that has more in common with frequencies of control, which are strategies that we use, developed over time and as a result of experience after experience of hurt. Our desire to love is often met with missteps, and we have hurts, and we develop strategies to avoid these hurts.
We have manipulations.
And manipulations.
Horse petting and
all of this strategic stuff adds up to struggle.
It does.
To the degree that we salt our response to life with what is authentic and beautiful and true, and along with all of the resistances and all of the strategies to protect ourselves, to try and control situations as opposed to be in the flow, that's the degree to which we meet struggle.
Well, and it's interesting because
you and I are virtuosos.
We are
struggle.
virtuosos. We're so good at this. And one of the big trickster things is some of the new agey stuff, and we trip on it all the time, where it becomes its own dogma. It becomes its own cycling back and its own way of explaining away things like, just some of the law of attraction talk that we do. We get caught in it, where we're cycling back and we're not fully owning the pain, the hurt, the parts of us that really need to be picked up and brought along so that we can be more in integrity, and by that I mean integrated in moving forward with our lives, towards this clarity, not of result, clarity of offer, clarity of the quality we want to generate, those pieces that ultimately generate a kind of flow and a kind of ease. But it's hard for those of us that have...
Well, it requires discernment. It requires some maturity. The other thing that I experience about passion, it may not be a rule, but it's certainly a personal guideline. Passion, it ebbs and it flows, it waxes and it wanes. It has its own cadence. Sometimes passion burns very brightly, and sometimes the jets back off to a flicker, to a dim flicker. Passion that is fully lit all the time would burn us out.
Yeah.
You can get burned by passion. When people have an experience of totally passionate experience, how's that for redundant? Totally passionately focused. Oftentimes they can do that at the expense of other needs, other relationships, other priorities. I have danced that particular dance myself. We have all kinds of models, cautionary models for that. Great painters, and they have a certain kind of nobilized mystique because they're such workaholics. But if you look a little closer, the tragedies of that are that they burn themselves out. Their passion becomes expressed at the price of a balanced life, and so we have seasons to our passion.
We're coming to the end of the show. There's so much that you just touched on, and we've got to obviously wrap it up. But I think we'll be talking about this more in the future, where our passions can get misaligned, and we can become narcissistic and self-centered and not really see a bigger picture, and it becomes an expression of a sort of shadow piece. Obviously, we'll touch on that more. But we want to thank you all for tuning in, and we want to invite you, of course, to keep coming back to Cutting Edge Consciousness.